Hi, welcome in to your space about the throat center in human design. Um, Today we're going to be looking very specifically at this center. For me, it's really important because it is the center that tends to manifest our reality. We all know that words have power, whether they're influencing people or affecting people around us, or the voice that we use internally for ourselves. So I find this center particularly fascinating. 71% of us have it defined. That means we have regular and consistent energy at the throat. We have a kind of fixed way of expressing things, and it's a gearbox center for expression, communication. We talk about it being the manifestation center. I think it's very much because we look at your words manifesting your reality. Whether those words are internally the way we talk to ourselves or externally the way we talk to others, it's without doubt in my mind that our thoughts and our words have a tendency to create our reality. So I think for that reason, it's been very important for me to understand the throat, the energy of the throat. So it is uncommon to have it undefined, but undefined will, of course, bring in energy from the environment, the people around, and there is wisdom in that, flexibility, the same as with the ajna. There can be real wisdom in not running things in a fixed way. For me, when I thought about it, the throat, people tend to have a regular and consistent voice. Rarely does the voice change too much, or it's less common. So getting energy to the throat is the name of the game in human design. It's our deliberate action, our communication, the way we speak to ourselves. Because words have the power to manifest, this is why we have manifestors with energy at the throat and manifesting generators with energy at the throat. It tends to be that there is a motor connected to the throat with the manifesting generator, so they can bring action to that throat. We tend to put pressure on ourselves at times to speak at the wrong time, so timing is also an important thing here. You can't really pressure communication, and most of us that have actually felt under pressure to communicate when we're not ready often wonder if we're being properly understood or if you're communicating in a way that is confusing or clear. So being wise about that would be the energy of the undefined throat. For all of us, we're designed to speak, especially with the defined throat, but to be heard, you need to follow your strategy and authority, because there's no good speaking to an audience that isn't for you. If you have a defined throat, you're here to receive attention in a fixed way. If you're receiving the wrong attention, you become a bit obsessed with hiding from it. So the wrong attention is a sign that you're in the wrong audience, in the wrong environment for what you're communicating. Be patient and wait for the right timing. I think that's key for a lot of things happening at the throat. Again, defined throats have a way of pushing energy out. Now, thinking that's more than 70% of us, we have a way of pushing energy out to undefined throats. So sometimes people will verbally dump all their communication on you, and you will need to create some boundaries if this is happening. But with a defined throat, you can help undefined throats by asking them lots of questions about what it is they're creating. So you help undefined throats get energy to the throat just by having a defined throat yourself. And if you can recognize that the person you are or the person you're with is having trouble with communicating, if it is unclear, if it is confusing, use your defined throat to ask clear questions. If you happen to know where their authority is, you can guide the questions to that authority, whether they're, how do they feel about it, or asking a closed question of their sacral. I think these things would be particularly useful in workspaces, because how many of us communicate particularly effectively with our colleagues at all times? Your throat has a tendency to speak and act based on what it's connected to. So if your throat is connected to the ajna, what you're thinking about and analysing or learning is what you're communicating. If it's connected to your heart, it's about what you want or what you have. You are meant to talk about yourself. People sharing their personal stories, people sharing bits and pieces about themselves, which again is becoming a bit of a theme at the moment, is people are sharing their personal experiences because there is benefit in those of us with open centres receiving those experiences. So whilst it may sound selfish, it actually is here to benefit the collective, which is why it's important that people talk about themselves when it's connected to the heart. It's not, try to view this in a different way from the selfishness of communication. If you have yourself, notice that you have a connection at the heart to the throat. You are here to talk about yourself. You're here to talk about your experiences so that others may benefit from that, not because you're a selfish person. And if you don't have this energy, but you observe it in somebody else, we can be kinder about what that energy is actually expressing. It's not a selfishness, it's a need to communicate from the heart. The G center, if your throat is connected to your G center, which is that very middle triangle, this is your magnetic monopole. This is your self center and who you are at a soul level, how you identify, the direction you're taking, the love that you have. This is what you communicate. People with it connected at the solar plexus, throat to solar plexus, have feelings and emotions that they are here to communicate. The spleen is here to communicate in the moment, very intuitive knowing. And the sacral is what your sacral responds to, your work, your family, all the things that the sacral has energy for. So how we speak and what we speak about depends very much on the connection that the throat has. And you will notice that the throat has a lot of connections, directly and indirectly. So the voices of the throat, to help you identify them, will be that I think comes from the ajna, I know comes from the ajna, and I believe comes from the ajna. I believe is the storyteller. That open ajna that has a lot of thoughts, a lot of wisdom to offer, talks about their beliefs because they're not certain. If you feel or experience, you know you can try something or you have something, you're coming from the emotional solar plexus. I know that I can contribute is a self-expression. It comes from the G center, or remembering, sharing lessons from the past come from the G center. I lead is also the G center, the direction. I am now would be communication from the spleen. And I identify or I experiment is also the spleen. The undefined throat, whilst less common, is here to be wise about communication and action. They can feel invisible. If you have an undefined throat and you feel invisible, it's not uncommon, and finding ways to get energy to the throat so that you're not seeking attention or saying things or acting in a way that you, or speaking in a way, should I say, that you are not comfortable with, that doesn't actually reflect you. These things can make you feel a little out of control and wanting to hide. The key here is to wait for the invitation, so that the invitation to speak, when it's offered, is one that you're responding to and is more likely to be aligned with you. Again, it's why it's incumbent upon people with a defined throat to ask the questions and to invite, because they tend to be more comfortable doing it. The open throat is a rare configuration because the throat has so many gates, and therefore it's got the most potential to activate all the centers. If you have a completely open throat with no gates activated, you can feel at a complete loss for words. It's difficult if you are in that environment to overcome that, and becoming comfortable with the silence and not feeling the pressure to speak when you're not ready is a practice to undertake. If you don't feel you have a voice of your own, it can be disempowering. So finding somebody who speaks in a way that is aligned with your strategy and authority would be a good action, a positive action for you to take, so that you're aligned with the energy that's aligned with you. And this way you're not speaking in a way that doesn't feel aligned with you because a defined throat happens to be near you. So we all speak better and are heard better when we follow our strategy and authority. So regardless of definition, no one voice is meant for everybody. It is a knowing your audience moment and a waiting to be invited moment, almost a projected energy, like the projector of waiting to be seen, waiting to be invited before we're using the throat effectively. In a manifestor's energy, because that sacral is not defined, because that energy is not there, it tends to come from one of the other centers. If it's connected to a motor, i.e. the will center, the heart, then they will be communicating in a way that can sound selfish. If we put that expression on it, it comes very much about the self. But communicating about the self is, again, communicating about the self for the benefit of the tribe, for the benefit of others. Sharing that self story isn't without value. So we can help again by reflecting on how we think about somebody who is speaking in this way. And I hope that assists you today in looking at the energy that is at the throat, taking note yourself of your own body graph, whether your throat is defined or undefined. And if you need any support or assistance with it, then just reaching out. I will touch base with you tomorrow. We have day 11 of our countdown today, and I hope it goes well for you. I will see you tomorrow for day 12. Much love.